Have you ever paused to reflect on why you speak the way you do? What does your voice reveal about who you are? Imagine if your accent, your tone, or even your vocabulary influenced how others see you. Philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once remarked, "The boundaries of my language are the boundaries of my world." But maybe it goes beyond that. Maybe the way we communicate actually shapes who we are at our core. If we spoke differently, could we become different versions of ourselves? Our voice isn't just a noise we produce. It holds our history, our roots, our identity. It can serve as both a key that grants access or a wall that keeps us out. Consider this. How often do people alter their speech when talking to someone in a position of authority, or adjust their accent to sound more neutral in unfamiliar settings? These subtle shifts aren't coincidences. They reflect unspoken social rules about who is accepted and who isn't. Michel Foucault, the French thinker, saw language not merely as a tool, but as a site of power struggles. The way we talk can empower us or hold us back. Some voices carry weight, others are dismissed. Sociologist Pierre Bourdieu called this linguistic capital, the idea that speech styles can either boost our standing or push us to the margins. And this conditioning starts early. Research shows that infants gravitate toward voices that sound like those of their caretakers. Even at a young age, children tend to bond with peers who speak similarly, prioritizing accent over appearance. As we grow older, these instincts can turn into bias. Individuals who speak with regional or foreign accents are often unfairly judged as less capable or less trustworthy, even when they say the exact same things as someone else. One real example is that of Manuel Fragante, a decorated war veteran with an outstanding professional background. Despite his qualifications, he was denied a job simply because his Filipino accent made hiring managers uncomfortable. He challenged this injustice in court and lost. The verdict? Discriminating based on speech wasn't illegal. He wasn't turned down for lack of skills, but because his voice didn't fit the narrow mold of what was deemed acceptable. This case highlights a deeper issue. Our world often draws invisible lines between those who are welcomed and those who are pushed aside, and language is one of the tools it uses. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Hell is other people, but maybe what's truly hellish is when others use our voices against us." Frantz Fanon, a philosopher and anti-colonial thinker, deeply understood this. In his studies of colonized societies, he saw how control didn't start just with weapons. It began with the erasure of native languages. Colonizers would outlaw indigenous tongues and replace them with their own, reshaping the way people spoke to disconnect them from their roots. This tactic has appeared throughout history, under apartheid in South Africa, during Franco's dictatorship in Spain, where Catalan and Basque were suppressed. Time and again, when those in power want to dominate, the first move is often to silence the voices of the people. But what if speaking up is itself an act of rebellion? Philosopher Judith Butler explores the idea that language doesn't just describe us, it creates us. Our identity isn't something set in stone, but a performance we carry out again and again. This helps explain why some communities turn their speech into a form of defiance. Consider how rap music turned marginalized dialects into powerful expressions of resistance, or how indigenous languages persist today, surviving centuries of attempts to erase them. The way we speak can signal obedience or spark rebellion. And in this silent struggle for vocal legitimacy, the digital age is rewriting the rules. Marshall McLuhan famously said, "The medium is the message," and nowhere is that more evident than online. The internet is blending dialects, breaking down old standards, and giving rise to new ways of expression. Standard English is no longer the only voice on the global stage. Regional accents now reach millions. For the first time, people who were once silenced are being heard on a massive scale. But is this really progress? Are we dismantling old barriers or simply putting up new ones in different shapes? Zygmunt Bauman's theory of liquid modernity prompts us to ask whether we're truly becoming more accepting or just adapting exclusion into more flexible, elusive forms. In the end, Nietzsche's words echo loudly. There are no facts, only interpretations. The way we speak shapes how the world sees us, and that perception plays a role in forming our self-image. So here's the question. If your voice sounded different, would your life unfold differently too? If speech helps define who we are, then what does that say about identity itself? Is it something born from within, or something sculpted by how others expect us to sound? Jean-Paul Sartre said that being seen by others transforms us. But what about being heard by others? The unsettling reality is that no one speaks exactly the same in every situation. We naturally shift our tone, our pace, even our word choices, depending on where we are and who we're with. That's because language isn't just a means of expression. It's a mirror reflecting our desire to fit in. Linguist Penelope Eckert found that high school students spoke differently depending on which social group they identified with. Athletes had one style, while outsiders had another. Even though they were all in the same school, what changed wasn't their environment, but the version of themselves they wanted to project. And this kind of code switching doesn't end in our teenage years. In the workplace, a manager might lower their voice to project authority, while at home, that same voice might soften. These shifts are tied to what Pierre Bourdieu called linguistic capital, the idea that speech, like wealth or influence, can be a form of social currency. Those who speak in the expected or prestigious way often enjoy greater visibility, influence, and inclusion. Meanwhile, those whose speech diverges from the norm may find themselves sidelined, misjudged, or silenced entirely. The issue is that the standard itself isn't impartial. It's a product of history, shaped to serve specific interests and groups, often at the cost of others. One powerful example of this manipulation occurred under South African apartheid, when the regime outlawed native languages in schools and enforced Afrikaans as the primary language. This wasn't just about teaching a different language. It was about enforcing submission, shaping identity, and erasing cultural roots. A similar situation unfolded in Spain under Franco's regime, where efforts were made to suppress the Catalan and Basque languages. When a language is silenced, it's not just words that disappear. Entire histories, identities, and cultures are erased in the process. But such repression isn't always overt. Often, it takes on quiet, insidious forms. Consider immigrants who, upon arriving in a new country, are immediately judged for their pronunciation. Or a child who enters school only to learn that the way their family speaks at home is considered wrong. These seemingly minor moments subtly communicate a harsh lesson. Not all voices are equally welcome. Philosopher Judith Butler describes identity as a performance, something we continuously adjust in hopes of being accepted. If that's true, then our speech becomes a key part of that performance. When a young adult moves away to study and returns speaking differently, it's not just their accent that has changed. They've reshaped themselves to blend into a new context. This transformation is rarely deliberate. It stems from a deep, almost unconscious human need to belong. But if language is a mirror of society, what happens when it shows us something we'd rather not see? Linguistic bias is one of the most hidden, yet damaging, forms of prejudice. It's not simply about how people talk, it's about who holds power. A simple grammar error might cause someone to be seen as uneducated. A strong accent can lead to assumptions of incompetence or distrust. Speech should never be used to measure someone's worth, and yet that's exactly what happens. Still, resistance persists. In communities that have long been marginalized, reclaiming language becomes a way to assert pride and identity. In the U.S., African American vernacular English, once dismissed and ridiculed, has evolved into a vibrant mode of cultural expression featured in music, storytelling, and cinema. Similarly, street slang and local expressions that were once mocked as signs of ignorance are now embraced as emblems of solidarity and pride. This reflects a deeper contradiction. While language connects us, it also divides. We create invisible barriers with our words, subtle distinctions between what's normal and what's other. Ludwig Wittgenstein described language as a game, but that leads us to ask, who created the rules? Who decides which styles of speech are valid and which are not? When a non-native speaker stumbles over your language, do you unconsciously think less of them? When someone speaks with a heavy accent, does it irritate you without you knowing why? If you receive a message with a grammar mistake, is your first instinct to question the sender's competence? Linguistic discrimination is especially dangerous because it hides behind the illusion of neutrality. It's rarely seen as prejudice. It masquerades as a concern for correctness. But that raises another question. Correct by whose standards? Michel Foucault reminded us that power doesn't always come through force. Often it works through the silent enforcement of norms, and few norms are as arbitrary, yet deeply ingrained, as those around language. Who gets to decide which accent sounds the most pleasant? Who defines which words are wrong? Who turns certain ways of speaking into marks of inferiority? For example, in courtrooms, research reveals that witnesses who speak with foreign accents are often judged as less credible compared to those using the so-called standard accent. This means that even when two individuals say the exact same thing, the one with an unfamiliar accent is viewed as less trustworthy. This bias also shows up during job interviews, salary discussions, and even in the way customers are treated at stores. Psychologist Katherine Kinsler conducted an intriguing study to explore how this bias begins early in life. Children were shown two identical pictures accompanied by voices, one speaking with a native accent and the other with a foreign accent. The kids consistently favored the image paired with the familiar-sounding voice. This reveals that linguistic prejudice isn't something we consciously learn. Rather, it's a natural inclination that, if left unchecked, can grow into real discrimination. This issue also appears in the housing market. Studies indicate that people with non-standard accents face more challenges when trying to rent homes, even when their income and credit are on par with native speakers. In other words, the bias isn't about their qualifications, but about how they sound. But is this rejection because their speech is genuinely hard to understand? In most situations, the answer is no. In one experiment, college students listened to a lecture by a professor and were then asked to write down what they heard. Half the students were told the professor was a native speaker, while the other half were told he was foreign. The audio was identical for all, yet the students who believed the professor was foreign reported more difficulty comprehending him. This highlights a troubling truth. Often, it's not the actual language that blocks understanding, but our own prejudices. If we expect someone to be hard to understand, we build that barrier before even giving them a chance to speak. These biases hit hardest during childhood. Kids who speak with regional dialects or use slang are frequently corrected at school as if their natural way of talking is a mistake rather than just a different form of language. Gradually, children learn that their authentic voices aren't accepted. They're pressured to adopt speech patterns that aren't theirs, while children from wealthier backgrounds have their speech praised as proper. Pierre Bourdieu named this phenomenon symbolic violence. When one group enforces its cultural standards as the only legitimate ones, causing others to accept this hierarchy as normal. As a result, millions of people worldwide spend their lives trying to change how they speak. They attempt to hide their accents and conform to what society deems acceptable. The lingering question is, why don't we do the opposite? Instead of forcing everyone to sound the same, why don't we learn to listen with greater openness? This idea is vital for what comes next. Language isn't just a divider. It can also be a powerful tool of resistance. If the way we talk determines whether we are accepted or excluded from certain social groups, what happens when we decide not to conform? What occurs when we fully embrace our natural voice? If language can be used to exclude, it can also serve as a form of resistance. What happens when someone refuses to alter their speech to fit in? What happens when a community chooses to reclaim its unique way of speaking as a symbol of identity? That is the moment when language goes beyond just communication and turns into a site of struggle. Frantz Fanon, in his analysis of colonialism's psychological effects, understood that one of the earliest assaults on oppressed peoples is not physical, but linguistic. He noticed that colonizers not only forced their language on the colonized, but also instilled shame about their native speech. The goal extended beyond mere political control. It aimed at erasing identity itself. Fanon believed that reclaiming one's language was a revolutionary act. This pattern repeated itself in South Africa during apartheid, when black students were compelled to learn in Afrikaans, the language of the ruling white minority. In 1976, thousands of students in Soweto rose up against this enforced language policy, protesting the prohibition of education in their mother tongues. The government's violent crackdown highlighted a vital truth. Language was not a trivial matter. It was central to identity, belonging, and freedom. A similar situation unfolded in Spain under Franco's regime, which sought to wipe out Catalan and Basque languages from public life. For many years, openly speaking these languages could lead to persecution. Yet despite repression, people continued to speak, write, and safeguard their tongues. Today, after prolonged resistance, these languages have not only endured, they have become powerful emblems of cultural pride and defiance. But acts of linguistic resistance don't only happen during major historical upheavals. They also take place in daily life, through small but meaningful gestures. In the United States, African American vernacular English, often called Black English, was long dismissed as a lesser form of English, something to be corrected or erased in schools and workplaces. Instead of disappearing, it evolved, through rap music, literature, and film, into a strong expression of cultural identity. The same process occurs with marginalized slang and accents around the world. For years, speech from the fringes was viewed as a mark of ignorance, something to be fixed. Yet these ways of speaking endure, reshape themselves, and often become badges of belonging and empowerment. Philosopher Judith Butler proposes that identity is an ongoing performance, something we continuously enact and reinforce. If that is so, then our manner of speaking is not just an incidental trait, but a deliberate expression of who we are and which community we identify with. Choosing to preserve an accent, a dialect, or a particular tone can be a way of declaring, "I know you expect me to conform, but I won't." The pressing question is, will this form of resistance be embraced? Or will society keep penalizing those who speak outside the bounds of what is deemed correct? The answer might be unfolding right now in the digital era, where fresh ways of speaking are challenging old linguistic norms. This brings us to an important question. Is the internet making language more inclusive, or is it simply forming new kinds of barriers? For centuries, language rules were set by authoritative bodies, language academies, governments, and educational institutions. But today, who controls how we speak? The answer, the internet. Social networks, memes, viral clips, streaming services. They are reshaping not only what we say, but the manner in which we express ourselves. What once was considered an error can quickly become popular. What once was marginalized can now be embraced by mainstream culture. The digital age is tearing down old linguistic walls. Yet, is it also building new ones? Communication scholar Marshall McLuhan famously said, "The medium is the message." This suggests that the way we communicate is just as important as the content itself. Consider this. Twitter's 280-character limit has changed how we organize our ideas. WhatsApp has relaxed the need for formal punctuation. Platforms like TikTok and YouTube amplify regional accents because videos capture authentic voices and share them with millions, without traditional gatekeepers filtering them. For the first time ever, a young person speaking with a strong local accent can discuss complex ideas like philosophy and reach a vast audience. A migrant can start a channel and gain recognition far beyond what a typical job interview might offer. People from diverse backgrounds can blend languages, inventing new digital dialects. Is this true inclusion, or simply a new form of exclusion? Sociologist Zygmunt Bauman described our era as liquid modernity, where everything is in constant flux. Language is no exception. The once rigid rules are fading, yet simultaneously, fresh linguistic hierarchies arise. In the online world, those fluent in internet language, memes, emojis, digital slang, earn prominence. Those unfamiliar with these codes risk being left out. There's another issue. Though the internet lifts voices once silenced, social media algorithms favor certain speech patterns. Videos featuring popular accents tend to get wider exposure than those with less common ones. YouTube has even faced criticism for penalizing content from Black and Latino creators because its algorithms struggle to process their speech as easily as standard English. So, are we truly moving toward inclusivity, or are we just inventing new forms of bias? If language barriers were once geographic, now they're digital. If language norms were once dictated by governments, today they're influenced by artificial intelligence. Are we genuinely breaking free from linguistic prejudice, or merely shifting the gatekeeping to algorithms? The answer may ultimately depend on how we perceive language. In the end, the words we choose and the willingness with which we listen will decide if we're constructing bridges or building new walls. But what does this mean for you personally? Your voice, how you speak. Does it connect you to others, or does it create distance? This leads us to the final question. If the way we talk shapes our identity and our future, then who do you become when you choose to speak exactly as you wish? Since the way we speak influences how others see us, how much freedom do we really have to be our true selves? Is identity just something flexible, shaped by what society expects to hear? Or is there something fundamental in our voice that, if changed, would alter who we are at our core? Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said there are no absolute facts, only interpretations. Few things illustrate this better than language itself. The same sentence can inspire when spoken by one person and fall flat when spoken by another. The same words might feel trustworthy or doubtful, depending on the speaker. Talking is not just sharing information, it's a statement of existence. What we've explored here shows that language is a contested space, an unseen filter that determines who belongs and who gets excluded. Some voices are given volume, others are silenced. Certain accents are praised, others are dismissed. Some ways of speaking earn respect, others invite mockery. But there is incredible power in those who hold on to their voice, even when pressured to change. There is courage in speaking authentically, even knowing it might close some doors. Because ultimately, identity is not only about fitting in, it's about being genuine. So now I ask you, do you speak to be heard or to be accepted? If your voice changed, would you still be yourself? If you've stayed with me this far, it means this topic struck a chord with you somehow. Maybe it reminded you of a time your way of speaking was judged, or perhaps it made you aware that you've also judged others by their speech. Either way, this reflection doesn't end here. It continues within you, resonating in your everyday moments, in how you hear yourself, and how you listen to others. I remember once seeing a classmate introduce herself in a meeting with a professor. She completely shifted her manner of speaking, leaving behind her natural tone, rich with slang and neighborhood expressions, and adopting a formal, almost robotic style. Later, she told me she felt that speaking normally wouldn't earn respect or seriousness. That moment stayed with me. It wasn't just about changing her voice. It was a deeper struggle between identity, acceptance, and belonging. How often have we felt the need to soften, modify, or adjust how we speak just to fit in? But what if the opposite should happen? What if the space around us opened up and embraced the variety of voices instead of demanding everyone sound the same? That's why I want to thank you for staying until the end, for taking time to reflect on something that might seem as simple as language, but is actually one of the most powerful tools we have, the ability to reveal who we are to the world. Thank you for being part of this dialogue, for helping to build a place where ideas flow freely, where words become more than sounds. They become gateways to deeper understanding. Before I finish, I ask one last thing. Listen. Listen to the voices around you without bias, without rushing to judge. Listen beyond accents, beyond formality or casualness. Listen to what people truly want to express, because understanding others is not just about hearing, it's about empathy. If this video changed how you see language, let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt your way of speaking was a barrier? Have you ever changed your voice just to fit in? Let's continue this conversation. And if you found this video meaningful, please remember to like, subscribe, and enable notifications. There are plenty more thought-provoking ideas coming your way, and I promise the upcoming questions will challenge you even further. Catch you in the next video. Until then, cherish your voice and stay true to yourself.